Okay, let's make a start then this morning. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our session for Digital Leaders Week, Embedding Digital Inclusion into Your Corporate Strategy. I'm Catherine Evans, and I'm the Policy and Communications Manager for Digital Communities Wales, Digital Confidence, Health and Wellbeing, which is a programme funded by Welsh Government and delivered by the Wales Cooperative Centre. Now, I'm your chair this morning, and in a minute I will introduce our panellists for the session. But before that, just a few housekeeping notices for everyone. We're not expecting any fire drills this morning in our virtual event. I'm afraid you're going to have to organise your own refreshments, and hopefully by now you know where the toilets are. We will be taking questions at the end of the session, so if you want to put a question into the chat box for this Zoom meeting, then please do so, and I'll pick those up at the end of the session. And we're recording the session today, so you will be able to access everything afterwards. If you'd like to remain anonymous, then please keep your camera switched off and feel free to change your profile name if you wish to do so. Okay, so I just want to start with a little bit of background for the session today. We know at Digital Communities Wales that many organisations are doing some fantastic work in digital inclusion at a sort of grassroots level. Probably people who are in the audience today are amongst the organisations doing that grassroots digital inclusion work. But we also know that this work is often organised within individual teams using short-term funding. Sometimes it isn't joined up across an organisation, and learning from individual projects isn't often shared amongst other teams. So that results in patchy and inconsistent results. So last autumn, Digital Communities Wales commissioned research to find organisations that had taken a more strategic approach to digital inclusion and to find out how they'd managed to get buy-in from senior leaders and embed a more corporate approach. Now, what I'll do in a moment is put a link in the chat to that research so that you can download it during the session or afterwards. Now, I'm delighted today that we're joined by three of the organisations that have taken this more strategic corporate level approach to digital inclusion: Denbighshire County Council, Welsh Water and Torfaen County Borough Council. But first, I'd like to introduce the author of the report, Dr. Craig Livingstone from AP Benson, a management consulting firm which provides services in strategy consulting, business management, IT transformation, research, finance, and economic development. It works with private, public, and third sector clients, including social enterprises. Craig is a consultant, researcher, and technology expert with 25 years' experience advising technology-led projects and businesses. Craig has undertaken research and authored reports on digital and ICT solutions in health and care, automotive, life sciences, financial services, advanced materials, and manufacturing sectors. So I'm going to hand over now to Craig. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the introduction. Yes, I did use all of the 65 words that were available to me in both paragraphs, and I knew I need to keep it shorter in the future. I'm just going to share a short presentation with you, and I should say we were delighted to be invited to undertake this piece of research. I've had a long-term interest in digital inclusion, particularly in healthcare. My original work on completing my PhD was with GlaxoSmithKline, and I was involved in the development of healthcare systems, particularly systems that were intended for the public to access directly themselves. And digital inclusion, that work goes back almost 30 years now, the original launch of the World Wide Web. And a lot of us on this call, I'm sure, are very familiar with the World Wide Web and the kinds of services that are available there and what we can access through our mobile phones. And we live a partially digital life, although I suspect most of us are what I think are known as digital immigrants, in that we've had to learn at some point in our lives how to do that. And the younger people of today, of course, are digital natives because they've had it all of their lives. But there's still a significant part of our population that really doesn't have access in a meaningful way to the kinds of services that are available online. And that is really the focus of the work that we've undertaken here. So I think we still have to ask, why do people need to be online? And I think the answer is now becoming because it's essential as a means for participating in society. I think most of us will be familiar with, applying for things online, buying things online. There are some organisations where that's really the only means of transacting that we have available to us. And that's really been recognised in the Welsh Government's new digital strategy, where digital inclusion is the second of their missions within a set of missions that they've set themselves to make Wales a better digital nation. There's a pattern of declining numbers of people who lack digital skills over time, but really digital exclusion is still quite high in Wales, maybe as many as 10% of the population. That's 250,000 people don't use the internet. Lloyds Bank's UK Consumer Digital Index estimates that even by 2030, there's going to still be a quarter of the population will have low, meaningful levels of digital engagement. That means they might not be able to handle information and content in the way that we do, that they're unable to communicate online, that they can't transact online, that they're not able to solve the kinds of problems that we might want to be able to solve online. And maybe they also feel unsafe, or they might not feel entirely at home in a legal sense online either. So I think there's a need still to make an effort to include people. And a real problem, I think, is that those people who are affected by digital exclusion are also those groups of people who are affected by other deprivation factors. So we're talking about older people, people with disabilities, people who are less well educated, people who have lower incomes, people who live in more isolated areas, maybe people who don't use English as a first language. Socially isolated and lonely people, if they can't interact online, will be even more lonely. I think we've all learned, during the pandemic, that these kinds of sessions and staying in touch with people online is helpful. And for people who are otherwise going to be totally alone, is a good solution for them. And of course, there are special groups like the homeless people who really just don't have the opportunity to interact online. And the reason that they're not able to do that is they may lack the knowledge of what they can do online, and they may lack the skills to be able to do it. Some are excluded, really, you could say, for reasons of cost or access to equipment from being able to go online. And actually, some organisations that might want to transact with them have their own problems in bringing staff up to the right levels of skills to work with customers, to be organisationally aware of what they need to do to include people digitally, and really don't address this as part of their normal strategy and delivery work, which is, I think you'll see, one of the things with our colleagues who are going to be talking after me today, the need to deal with this as just a normal way of doing business. Because I think the other interest from the Welsh Government is that they are also interested in this as a social justice issue. As I've said, this is a thing where we mirror other deprivation factors, and therefore to deliver social justice, we need to also think about digital inclusion. The goal and purpose of the report, as Catherine said, we are aware that there's good work going on in the community. There's a lot of grassroots work. There's a lot of quite successful projects out there, but they tend to be projects that have, at least in funding terms, a notional beginning and an end, and a hope to learn something from that and then to apply it later. And I think the learning that we'd like to get over to you today is that really the time has perhaps come to take that learning from the grassroots projects and start to apply it in day-to-day business. So Social Business Wales and Digital Communities Wales Cooperative Centre have commissioned this report to identify those organisations that can act as exemplars of best practice in digital inclusion, not because we want to give a prescriptive view on how this should be done, but because we want to share examples of success that other people can learn from. Our research approach was one of starting with quite a broad range of organisations that we spoke to. We undertook initial interviews with I think around 30 organisations, and then we narrowed in on the set that are set out in the report as case studies, as being the ones that really exemplify 3 particular ways of working, which I'll go into in a moment. So we spoke with organisations that are known to have implemented projects to address digital inclusion. And the 7 that we chose, I've highlighted here on this set of, I think they're known as tombstones, which is Welsh Water, Torfaen Care and Repair in Wales, Denbighshire Council, and also Hazlewood Community Housing, Tycalon, and sorry, I'm covering parts of my own slides now. We also had some good conversations with Scott there. And we had a broader group that we also had ongoing discussions with, who I've listed here. And not listed here, I should also thank Deborah Morgan at Swansea University, who's always been a good contact for really looking at the inclusion of people in the design of services. And she was also involved in the research. And I think we identified really 3 stages of development, or 3 different approaches to digital inclusion strategy. There's still a number of organisations that are addressing digital inclusion through the development of their own services. Quite a lot of organisations are still in the process of taking their own services online, and they're learning a lot as a result of doing so. Making aspects of customer service delivery more digital, and addressing exclusion in that context. And Tycalon's a good example of that, and they would admit themselves that they're at an early stage in this process. And really doing the research that we did, we've identified there's quite a lot of organisations that are still at that kind of stage. Then we have those organisations who are undertaking grassroots programmes and individual bits of research, and they are now getting outcomes that mean that they're now ready to incorporate that learning into strategy and to bring them into everyday corporate plans. And Hazlewood and Naworth and Care and Repair are examples of that. But the third group, and those who are represented on the panel today, are those who've already managed digital inclusion as a strategic issue or included in current strategic plans, and made it more a part of their general business strategy, a more part of day-to-day working. So they already have clear strategic plans, they have corporate ownership of this work, and they are addressing, as a result, digital exclusion. We drew a set of recommendations out of this, and when you get to see the report, you can go through these in detail. But I think probably not going through these in order, but picking out the key one, it is really to establish digital inclusion as part of business strategy, service design, business as usual, and not as a series of time and funding limited experiments. I think the time has now come to learn from experiments that organisations have delivered and to move that into that day-to-day working. And that requires ownership at senior management and board level, and that services now need to be designed to maximise digital inclusion. I think we know enough now about how to make that work for an audience. A good example being, we should always look at how to make services more accessible to those who are perhaps less educationally able. Because of course, if we make it easy for them, we're making it easy for everyone. So, you know, there's a kind of global advantage in delivering accessible digital services. Staff training is an important need. A number of organisations we spoke to still talked about the need for their own staff to be brought up to the skill level where they can work with digital systems more adequately to support customers. And I think there's still a recognition that we need to be encouraging people to be digital by choice rather than forcing it on them, and that, you know, some citizens may just still need to be able to access services by other means. A very important thing that particularly Deborah Morgan at Swansea University would point out is the involvement of service users in development of services. And this isn't just you know, sort of running usability sessions. This is really involving them in a cooperative process of development and involving them as evangelists for the adoption of digital services. So people from particular communities, a good example would be Welsh speakers speaking to Welsh speakers about working online, or you know, sharing personal experience and promoting digital use and co-production of services, we think is key to success. Another thing is to design your services so that they're future-proof. Responsive design's been around for a long time now, and of course there's been, you know, a tremendous move over to most users transacting using smartphone devices. I think we always have to be aware that, you know, there's the possibility that things will move on even from there, and there will be other ways of working, and we need to design our digital services so that they can take advantage of those new capabilities. There also, we think there's an opportunity for cooperation between service provider organisations. Everyone doing this isolated and on their own is not the most efficient use perhaps of funding, and sharing experience and perhaps even sharing service delivery are options that I think it would be useful to consider, particularly I would say between public sector organisations. I think there's a need to share evidence and experience from individual projects. There's a lot of organisations in Wales and UK globally that have now, you know, sort of taken various numbers of steps down this path, and I think we can all learn from each other. And I think it's important as well that national support programmes are in place to support this. Particularly, we would point, of course, to Digital Communities Wales and the Digital Inclusion Alliance for Wales as centres that and you know, organisations that can help to gather and share best practice. But I think the time has probably come now to hand over to my colleagues and for them to talk about their specific situations.
Great, thank you very much, Craig. So don't forget, if you have any questions for Craig, if you could put those into the chat and we'll pick those up at the end of the session. So I'd like now to introduce our first digital inclusion exemplar. Denbighshire County Council covers the county of Denbighshire in North East Wales. As a unitary authority, it's responsible for providing the local government functions in this area. And some key services that the council provides to its community are education, libraries, planning, waste and social services. Denbighshire Council's aspirations for the county are set out in its corporate plan. Matthew Hazlewood is a project manager at Denbighshire County Council, working within a team delivering high-profile corporate plan related projects, all associated with business transformation. His previous experience includes project management and service delivery roles in the not-for-profit and environmental sectors. So over to you, Matt.
Thank you very much for that big introduction there. So I'm just going to take the next 10 minutes to just go through my experience of trying to embed digital inclusion into Denbighshire County Council over the last couple of years. So from this first slide, I just wanted to kind of give a view that actually digital inclusion was already important to Denbighshire. Before I even joined the organisation in 2019, it was part of their corporate plan. It had already been highlighted. They were looking at improving infrastructure across the county, and they thought, actually we might just need to kind of help people come along with us if they've got to access services online at Denbighshire. So that's why it's in there. So the concept around the project was around improving digital skills in those people that were the furthest away from having that access. So it had already had a head of service assigned to it, which yeah, which is great, which just helps to kind of the project flow nicely and to get it through any hurdles. And then they'd made a start before I'd arrived in 2018 with some previous workshops trying to identify themes and yeah, the people that they wanted to kind of reach, but it's kind of come to a bit of a stall. So in 2019, I picked up the project and looked at, yeah, basically doing some business analysis work, trying to identify what we were trying to achieve. So I picked up the outcomes from the workshop, did a mapping exercise because it was about a year that we'd kind of moved on, and just thought, well, actually digital inclusion sort of moves on as well. So went to about 7 or 8 different departments across Denbighshire, interviewing them about what had they done previously, what were they doing currently, and what's missing, and then drew all that together to try and identify themes. So that would have incorporated people like housing, education, libraries, social care, a real broad spectrum across the council. Also did a bit of work in terms of lessons learned with other stakeholders, so Gwynedd Council, looking to see what other organisations might be able to support us. DCW is one of those key organisations, and they're actually part of our project board. They bring advice and guidance, but also they bring that element of digital skills training, that's free digital skills training, I should say, that we just, yeah, because there's no resources with this project, then we needed that. And also we connected with Denbighshire Voluntary Service Council, which I'll mention later because they're a good resource for volunteers. Also did a bit of work around looking at demographics. Who do we kind of focus on? That's why you've got a Power BI heat map there that you can see as an image. So pulling that all together, we really drew upon Welsh Government's excluded individuals that they'd kind of highlighted, so older people, unemployed, etc., etc. So taking all that information, our project was kind of launched towards the end of 2019, and basically, like Craig has already mentioned before, that some organisations are taking tentative steps into this, and that's pretty much what we were doing. We really saw that actually we needed to try and develop our own skills in-house first before we actually said, yeah, this is a specific area that needs help. So that's what we focused on. Our project was very multifunctional across about 4 or 5 different departments. So mainly libraries, housing, social care, education. Work in Denbighshire have come on board later, which is the employment arm of Denbighshire Council, and had to be collaborative because there's no resources, no funding with this project. So we just need to go to other organisations to help resource. So the work streams that we came up with initially were training staff, frontline staff in digital skills. So I'm talking about digital skills that they can then pass on to people that they come across that might have an issue with a smartphone or a tablet, to be able, as a point source, help them navigate that a problem there and then. Libraries were being inundated with requests for help on how people can use their smartphones and tablets. So they wanted to develop a volunteer resource there. Libraries and community housing wanted to look at their own IT resource offers and try and get it up to date. And then also we thought, okay, we'll focus on some older people first, and we wanted to kind of do some intergenerational work between a residential care home in Corwin, matching them up with tech-savvy kids from a primary school. They'd put interest videos together and then share that with the residents, and then show them how to use tablets. So that was the plan for 2019, or that was the plan for the project initially. Coming into 2020, everything sort of changed. COVID happened, and for the project, what really, because I had so many frontline staff that deal with people, that when COVID hit, they all got redeployed. Some of the project team members were offline for about 9 months, so it really shrunk the project down. So momentum really slowed down on the project. So this was definitely one of the challenges last year. What we were able to do was eventually, when digital skills training moved online, we were able to access that. So got quite a number of social care staff through that. Resource reviews got done. And then also there was lots of funding being made available for care homes to get connected. So we managed to get fibre speed and to connected to the home that we were looking to do the intergenerational work, and kitted out with Facebook portals, iPads, Alexas, and yeah, they're just loving that access to a wider world of music and content. Yeah, it's had a real benefit there. I think what was really useful actually when we got into kind of COVID was actually taking stock of the project. Is what we're doing really what we want to do? And because everything was kind of moving online, do we need to kind of catch up? Do we need to make a change? And some of the two major outcomes from that was that actually libraries said, you know, we're struggling to try and find volunteers. We're locked up. We just don't have the resources actually to kind of keep volunteers managing them. So actually they said, could the project look for another opportunity? And last year myself and DCW were looking for another opportunity to kind of develop. On Digital Leaders Week last year, I came across Hackney Council, who were piloting, who had started Digital Buddies. And in essence, that is, it's a scheme where residents within, say, your county, they've got issues with tech, with smartphones, tablets, they're looking for help. They ring into a group of volunteers, and those volunteers are matched up with them by a coordinator. And I saw that, and I just thought, yeah, we could make that work in Denbighshire, but we'll adapt it to our location. And where Hackney Council were funding a coordinator, because we've got no funding with this project, we contacted Denbighshire Voluntary Services, who manage and coordinate the volunteers for us. I brought the project management side to it, and DCW bring the training, the digital skills training to the volunteers, and we launched that in February this year. So yeah, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Something else we kind of developed was we're thinking actually after COVID, maybe something around helping people who are economically vulnerable. So libraries, they said because they're all open plan, what we could do is create digital spaces where it's got tech in a room, and somebody who's looking for, who can't travel, can book out this room and have a virtual job interview or a one-to-one with, it could be DWP or it could be Citizens Advice. So they've gone off and done that. And then also we were looking at developing a VR project. Work in Denbighshire came to us and said, could we develop a virtual reality project where some of our participants who are really struggling with interviews can go through some scenarios that they can get used to an interview. So it's not as easy as a mentor-led one, but it's not as hard as a face-to-face one, somewhere in the middle. So we kind of developed that. So COVID in a way was good. It allowed us to take stock and redeveloped according to the needs that we were seeing at the time. Okay, so this is my last slide. So this is what we're looking like in 2021. Our digital skills training is ongoing. We've got a tranche of people going through that this month. Digital Buddies, well, trying to get this going during COVID was slow work, to be honest, but it's picking up as we kind of open up. And this week we've had 6 people come through asking for help. One of those individuals, an individual helped recently with mild dementia, has been helped to use voice to text in Word, but also connect to the Facebook community in the local village. So it's working really well and has a great impact. The digital spaces in libraries is going to be launched at the end of this month. The VR interview development, well, that got postponed a little bit because of COVID, but there's a group formed now and they're storyboarding for the scenarios, and they're looking to have a work placement, somebody who's got media skills for 6 months to help develop the content, and hopefully they should be filming in August on that. Intergenerational event, hopefully in June. and yeah, finally in June, because that's taken a long time to get to that place. And we're starting to kind of scope out this kind of issue around data poverty. To be honest, it's been there for a while. It's just that the phrase has been coined and by somebody, and we're starting to kind of look at, so that's an issue where people just can't afford Wi-Fi access, and we're starting to kind of look into that on a big housing estate in the north of our county. Yeah, to see if it's impacting on people's lives. So that's it from us at Denbighshire. That gives you an idea of yeah, how the project's gone, the struggles, but also what we're trying to do this year as well. So I'm going to pass on to colleague Paula. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Matt. That was great. Okay, so let's move on to our next exemplar. Dŵr Cymru Welsh Water is Wales' not-for-profit water company, providing drinking and wastewater services to most of the population of Wales and parts of England as well. It serves 1.4 million households and about 3 million people, supplying nearly 830 million litres of drinking water each day. And because Welsh Water serves nearly everyone in Wales, its service users include people from the broadest set of all groups that might be affected by digital exclusion. I'm delighted that we're joined today by Paula Burnell, who is the Head of Vulnerable Customer Service Support and Digital Services at Dŵr Cymru Welsh Water. Paula leads a team of 40 people who deliver against her remit of digital transformation, digital inclusion, and vulnerable customer support. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Paula.
Thank you, Catherine, and morning, everybody. I'll share my screen in just a second, just to make sure I retain connection. Unfortunately, I'm having connection issues this morning. So whilst I'm presenting, I'm going to turn my camera off. So apologies for that. So I'm just going to share my screen. Right. Okay, can everybody see the screen?
Yes, that's great. Thanks, Paula.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit today about our approach to digital services. And as Catherine has just alluded to, as we serve nearly everyone in Wales, our customer base includes a broad and diverse range of people, and many of which are affected by digital exclusion. So what we need to do is obviously some examples as Craig has gone through previously of those that are digitally excluded, being our elderly customers, our families, people with disabilities, or poor broadband even. So, you know, for us, it was an important strategic approach. And for Welsh Water, our focus is on the long term. And we recently published our Welsh Water 2050 plan, detailing how we plan to earn the trust of our customers and continue to improve our infrastructure so that the services we can provide safeguard our water for the longer term for our generations to come. So our challenge then is to design our online services so that they're usable by our customers with a wide range of abilities. We aim to maximise the usability by simplifying the design and creating online services that help as many users as possible. So basically, how have we gone about doing this? So we believe that digital inclusion is absolutely critical in our strategic approach, and this strategic approach starts at the top. Our CEO Peter Perry has identified the digital being one of our biggest challenges, and he wants the organisation to tackle alongside other topics such as climate change, inclusivity, and diversity. So having support from the top means we've been able to drive through digital innovation. For example, our newly created Rethink group, which is made up of colleagues of all backgrounds and all levels from across all of Welsh Water. The Dŵr Cymru executive team take a close interest in digital service delivery, including digital exclusion, and the Dŵr Cymru board receives regular presentations on digital transformation, addressing the digital inclusion amongst other transformation programmes. The board actively engaged in the development and implementation of digital strategies, and digital transformation and the inclusion is being addressed in the Dŵr Cymru 5-year plan. So we've identified several critical factors that would underpin an inclusive and successful digital offering for our customers. So firstly, we understand the customer journey. Mapping the journeys has helped us identify pain points where we could automate processes or provide a digital option that would make interacting with us quicker and easier for our customers. It's then important to design the digital inclusion and include representative users in the design process. We had to find ways to involve real representative customers in our design process. We do this in several ways. We monitor heat maps showing customer activity online to make sure our services are user-friendly. We host focus groups at the very early stages of design and ask customers for their input. And we regularly survey our customers for their opinions on our services, including our digital service offering. It's important not only for us to listen to our customers at the design stage, but keep listening as their needs and expectations change over time. Thirdly, we must enable our digital users to use our service by choice. In a nutshell, this means not relying on our digital services, but continuing to support other ways for users to interact through their channel of choice, whether that channel is digital or not. Next, we ensure that we think mobile first. So our data shows that the main platform for users to interact with us digitally is on a smartphone. So our services need to be designed with this in mind and still maintain the usability on other devices like desktop, tablet, or mobile. Another thing we do, not just from a digital inclusion perspective, but from a financial vulnerability perspective, is we work with over 300 partners. And that's the next critical factor that we focus on. We believe in the power of partnership and work hard to bring together organisations and build relationships outside our own company. Just recently, we held a conference to be together with representatives from other utility providers, Welsh Government, housing associations, and charities across Wales to talk about how we work together to support customers in vulnerable circumstances. When communicating about our service, while we make use of digital channels like email campaigns and social advertising, we're always mindful to include alternative communication methods which avoid digital exclusion. Things like direct mail or advertising services to excluded users on prescription bags go a long way to avoid exclusion. And finally, we need to continue to embed digital inclusion into the organisation as part of our continuous improvement process. Customer needs and expectations are changing at such a fast pace. We need to create a culture where continually working to adapt and improve our services become business as usual. We've achieved this through the introduction of the transformation team, whose remit is to constantly work on improving existing processes and introducing new ones to benefit our customers. So our work so far. Just some of the services we've delivered include our new website. We launched this about 18 months ago. We specifically designed all aspects of the new site to address digital inclusion by improving accessibility and making it as easy as possible for customers to interact with us. Since we made these changes, the traffic to our website has increased by 58%. We've seen much fewer hits to the contact us button, showing that customers are finding it easier to self-serve. The new pages we've introduced, where people can self-serve via web forms, have seen an incredible increase of 640%. And meanwhile, inbound calls have reduced by 5%. Making our online services more accessible, we've encouraged customers to self-serve online and helped free up agents on the phone for customers who still prefer to have a phone call. We've also introduced a new My Account, which enables customers to access their bills and make transactions online. This new service has proved popular with users, experiencing a huge uptake over the last 12 months, with a 213% increase in the number of customers signing up for online billing. And finally, we've introduced a dedicated vulnerable customer support team. In the last 2 years, we've signed up over 35,000 new priority services users, helping us identify where customers may need additional support, like financial help, bespoke bills, or large font. We also would deliver free bottled water if we were in an unplanned off-water incident. To add to this, during COVID, as you're aware, there were people asked to shield who make them vulnerable. We enabled a data share agreement with Welsh Government, whereby we data shared the shielding list, which added around 85,000 customers to our priority services register. And within our own data, we identified around 350,000 customers that could be vulnerable due to age or disability benefits, making a priority services register near on 500,000 customers that we were able to support during the COVID pandemic. So just some final thoughts from me. These are just some of the things that we put in place to improve our digital offering and to try and combat digital exclusion. The crucial thing for us here at Welsh Water is to keep our finger on the pulse and continually push ourselves to keep improving. We must keep a strategic focus on the importance of innovation and digital inclusion, and we must continue to interact with customers and listen to what they are telling us. We must keep talking to and learning from our partner organisations. And we believe this is how Welsh Water will continue to promote digital inclusion and do the right thing by our customers to earn their trust.
Great, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paula, that was lovely. Okay, I'm going to move on now to our final speaker this morning. Jim Wright is from Torfaen County Borough Council. Torfaen is a local authority in South East Wales. Its digital vision and ambition is that its customers' experience will have been transformed. The vast majority of its transactions will be online. Its people will be working as efficiently and effectively as possible, and it will have released capacity for its staff to concentrate on what really matters to its communities, whilst having contributed significantly to the financial challenges facing the council. Jim works in adult social care with a focus on innovation and service improvement. He says he likes to explore ways of involving and designing services with people and is passionate about inclusion, accessibility, and human rights. So over to you, Jim.
Hello. Hi. So yeah, we're just about to launch our digital strategy. We're waiting for our new chief executive to start in their role. So once they start, we're going to launch a new digital strategy. So why do we need a digital strategy? Well, we know that 89% of Torfaen residents have access to the internet. And we also know that 91% of adults over the age of 16 use it either at home, in work, or elsewhere. We're living in this digital age, in the way that we communicate, in the way that we live and work, and that's profoundly changed over recent years. We use technology and the use of technology and customer expectations are rising. So it's important that we provide services that match this. In developing our strategy, we're not starting from a blank sheet in regards to service design. Digital service provision has increased across the organisation, with different services and different departments investing in technology and using different service providers. As a result, you sometimes can get a fragmented set of systems and processes that may not provide a consistent customer experience. We know that this needs reviewing, and in order to do so, we need to create a consistent quality service that it provides good value for money. We think that adopting a digital strategy and a digital transformation will give us an exciting opportunity to rethink how the council operates and interact with our customers and partners to deliver that more efficient, high quality service that residents require. We've a fantastic opportunity for a wide transformation program using digital technologies to redesign what we do and allow our residents to have much more control over how and when we access their services and create a culture of digital innovation. One of the projects I'm working on is how we involve people in designing their own care and their own care packages using digital technology, and some of the latest artificial intelligence and geofencing models to be able to do some of that. The adoption of the strategy has been created in conjunction with our customer strategy, which sets out the customer focused services and is supported using and how they're supported using digital technology. The purpose of our digital strategy is to improve the delivery of services to our customers by enabling them to be supplied digitally. Essentially, this means that we have a digitally enabled workforce using digital systems to meet our customers' needs. We've got some main themes in our strategy. One is that we have digitally enabled customers, and that means we spend a lot of time supporting digital inclusion skills, digital skills and inclusion initiatives, which enable our customers to succeed the first time they engage with services. And we're encouraging and enabling self-service options, which is particularly important at this time when our resources are stretched. We, like some of our other speakers, we're very focused on a digitally empowered workforce, providing our staff with the digital tools and the skills and capabilities that will allow them to improve efficiency, flexibility and productivity. We want to be a digitally excellent council, improving our council's digital infrastructure, enabling digital enabled services, join up services and systems together and improve our customer experience and outcomes. One of the other things I'm working on is around digital data and intelligence. We're working on data tools that enable the organisation to extract multiple sets of data and use them and share with our councils and partners to gain new insights and enable better strategic and community and workforce planning. My interest is in social care, so it's looking at how we commission services. We're opening, do we need to open new kinds of services or work in different ways? We can use some of this with some of our data tools to predict, to model scenarios going forward. We want to finally, and probably most importantly, we want to create digitally enabled communities and to support communities through the provision of a better digital infrastructure. Our digital strategy will require us to put residents of Torfaen at the heart of designing and improving digital services by seeking and listening to their feedback. They're taking forward that user-led design processes. And we want to use digital services to better connect and make more accessible and convenient for residents. In my world, that accessibility is really key, making sure we get those last few centimeters right, the adjustment of technology so it meets somebody's needs who are maybe partially sighted, deaf, older, may have a learning disability, autism, neurodiverse conditions. We need to make sure that we got the technology right for all those people. We're using digital solutions to help us provide the right response to customers without them needing to correct any issues. We want to design digital services that are easy to use. Simplicity is the key, so residents choose to use them as the first option. And as I said earlier, we want to provide the support for those who need that extra help. So it's really key that we got that support there when people need to use digital. There's a number of design principles within our strategy about building the foundations of that, about collaboration and good governance systems and fostering independence of our citizens and very clear person-centered design and customer-centric digital design services that we want there. Our customer service needs to be excellent, and the experience that people experience going through their digital journey needs to be equally excellent. In our organisation, in the council, we have 4 key values, and they are fair, supportive, effective, and innovative. We want to make sure that what that means in terms of fairness is that we understand that not everybody has access to digital technology or the skills to use it. We will attempt to make as many of our services available digital, but we will also provide other means of accessing our services and support to require this help. Where we're supportive, we'll support our customers to access digital services where needed, and effective, our digital services will be designed to focus on the needs and minimize any unnecessary contact that may be overcomplicated. And in terms of innovative, we'll try new ways to deliver services, find out what are most effective and efficient, and involve our customers and employees in evaluating the new ways forward. In the council, there's over 200 different individual services and types of transactions that fall into different categories. We're working on how we work through those, make them the simpler and the best customer, most effective customer journey for people. We're designing processes around our customers and providing them with the right technology, supported by the right training and skills. Okay, I think we're coming to the end. So we've done a lot of work today. We've reviewed our websites, making sure that that's more accessible. We're looking at how we improve all our processes. One of the things around the strategies is how it's governed. We've set up a customer and digital board which oversees that, and we're working through those themes of creating digital enabled customers, digital empowered workforce, and a digital excellent council. And we have a work plan over the next 2 or 3 years to bring that into fruition, overseen by our cabinet and by our customer and digital board. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Jim. Okay, so we've now heard from all of our speakers this morning. So it's an opportunity now, if anyone has any questions. If you want to pop them in the chat, then that's fine, and I can ask them. Or if you want to ask your question in person, if you just use the reactions button on Zoom to raise your hand, and then I can ask you to turn on your camera and your microphone to ask your question. We've got one question already in the chat, which has come from Sarah Woolett. I'm going to ask everyone on the panel for their views on this. Sarah says, what are the best ways to ensure these ideas are spread across other organisations in the public sector? Craig, shall I come to you first for that one?
Well, I think it's one of the main motivations behind the report. We hope that people will find that report and find it useful. And as our colleague Paula said, although she's had to leave, she's very happy to be contacted. I would also be very happy to be contacted if anyone has questions after the session. I think organisations like Digital Communities Wales, who operate at a national level within Wales and more broadly across the UK, are very important to this, as well as centres of expertise that people can reach out to. I think the fact that the report is available online is important, and I think that drawing people to a place where they can get advice and maybe interact with others who've been on the same journey is a way of promoting this.
Great. Matt, how about you? How do you think we could spread this further across the public sector?
I think in Craig's presentation, there was something about the Digital Alliance in Wales. So I think that's actually quite a good platform. Yeah, that would be my view. We've been very much focused on what we do in Denbighshire. So something like being part of this report actually is a good way to share knowledge across public sector, if you can get it out to them.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much for the plug for the Digital Inclusion Alliance Wales, which is an alliance of organisations in Wales who are kind of seeking to work more collectively on this agenda and share best practice. And if anyone watching today is interested in joining the Alliance, the information is available on the Digital Communities Wales website. How about you, Jim? Any tips for sort of sharing?
Well, I think digital gives us a great opportunity to connect with each other, create peer networks and connect to forums. I'm a member of a number of forums myself. I use Slack to catch up with other colleagues who are carrying out similar work in other areas. In fact, technology offers us no boundaries across the world, so we can connect with people right around the world and learn from each other around some of the exciting things that are happening in digital and customer.
Great. Okay. I've got a question for Matt and Jim. I'm just wondering whether you had any barriers that you faced when trying to sort of deliver this work across the authority, and whether there's any sort of key lessons that you learned in trying to get corporate buy-in for the projects you were running. Jim, should we come to you first?
Yeah, I think there are any transformation, any change will always be, there's always barriers, there's always that process of change. I think it comes down to good communication, ensuring that we're involving people in that process, that we're building those relationships. One of the key lenses for me is around our skills around business analysis and looking at how systems work and how they function and how they can be quite often fail our customers. And I think it's about reframing, whatever we do around the needs of our customers and ensuring that we're providing the most effective, most high quality service that we can, and being good governors of the public purse, if you like, as well. So we're doing that efficiently as well.
Great.
But yeah, there are obviously, I mean, when you talk about change, people can get threatened. People can see things like automation come in, and that's threatening around their roles and their responsibilities as well. But I think with good communication, we can overcome a lot of that kind of stuff.
Great. Okay, Matt, any key takeaways for you in embedding this?
To be honest, the process has been actually very, very positive. Because we've always been focused on kind of building skills in people, it's always been seen as something good to do. I think the initial issues with, say, like corporate buy-in was around not providing kit for people that just necessarily just sat there and didn't get used. So we've kind of had to promise we can't use funding to kind of buy kit or whatever, because it's not sustainable anyway. But actually looking at different ways how we deliver things, and that's why we've gone with a model that's very much collaborative, try and work off the strengths of other organisations. Yeah, and that's kind of helped with the buying corporately.
Great. Okay. I mean, Craig, you spoke to a lot of exemplars here. Were there any sort of key themes that you've found in terms of engaging senior leaders?
Absolutely. I think that in some organisations, as we've seen, the focus is still at those earlier stages of adoption of digital inclusion. And I think the message that the time has come to move this into day-to-day work and just be a normal way of doing business, I think is the message that we need to be promoting.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, well, thank you very much. We're out of time this morning, but hopefully everybody found that useful and informative. I'd like to say thank you very much to our speakers this morning, Craig Livingstone, Matt Hazlewood, Paula Burnell, and Jim Wright. We're recording the session, as I said, so if you'd like to watch it through again, it'll be available on the Digital Leaders website in the next 24 hours. So do go back and watch again. And if you're on the Digital Leaders website, please check out all the other sessions that the Wales Cooperative Centre is running this week, as well as sessions from Digital Communities Wales. Thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.